top
Is it that time?
10 90s action movies. Guys, this was one of the hardest lists I had to make.
This was a difficult list.
I had 22 movies written down on this piece of paper. I could have had 32 movies listed down on this paper, and I cut it down to 22. And then Chris is like, oh, we're only doing 15, and, we got to have Patreon. Well, you know what? I mean, that's what we're going to do. It's a top 10.
We're doing our top 10. If you want to hear our, which is going to be really good, trust me. If you want to hear our 5 honorable mentions, you have to skate on over to patreon.com/snarfcomics. Be warned, the honorable mentions podcast extra will not come out till next week because we had the thing with Aaron Neville.
Right. And he's going to be on that Patreon.
I don't know about that. But
no, he said... Like, if you have a Patreon involved with this podcast, I will be on it. So we're going to have to recall in, and it'll be a little bit of a deal. But he specifically said, I will 100% be on the beginning of that podcast.
For that top,
Patreon.
For that honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week, the honorable mentions that has podcast will come out on Patreon. Again, patreon.com/snarfcomics. At $5 level a month, you get all of our bonus podcasts as well as a bunch of other stuff. And guys, we've been putting out pretty good bonus podcasts. So.
And listen, it's like a double episode a week.
But they don't come out every week. But
no, not every week. But when we have the honorable mentions, it's like getting 2 podcasts a week.
Yeah, basically.
It's almost like 3 hours worth of content.
Who knows? The honorable mentions sometimes might be your favorite movies on the honorable mentions.
It could be.
So then you want to hear us talk about those, right?
Yeah. Like I don't have the same likes that you do.
Right.
And I guarantee you our lists are different. And I guarantee you
was very difficult.
I'm going to have unpopular opinions.
Me too. But this list was difficult, and I think we should start it off.
Okay. So what is your number 10, Chris?
All right.
Go.
This might be a somewhat controversial pick, Jerry.
Really?
But it's a movie that I love, that I loved watching in the 90s. I love watching now. And I had to give credit where credit is due to one of the greatest B-movie action stars of all time, Mr. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Really?
And I have to go at number 10 with Time Cop.
Wow. I did not think that would make your top 10.
Time Cop is an absolute classic cult
agree.
movie. It was Jean-Claude Van Damme's highest grossing movie of all time. Over $100 million in the box office, by the way.
You know what I like? Bloodsport.
Well, that's a great one, too.
Yeah.
It's the second movie to break $100 million worldwide. And not only that, but it actually is a really good movie. This is one of the only movies of his that's actually like a super good movie and just happens to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. So I've always been a fan of this ever since I was a middle schooler sitting on Victor Rexroad's couch eating entire boxes of Ritz crackers and with peanut butter and just watching Time Cop.
You're eating full tires of peanut butter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. That's incredible.
Full tires?
It sounded like you said tires.
No, I didn't say that. A jar of peanut butter.
Yeah.
Box of Ritz crackers. Time Cop. Boom. That's all you need.
And that's a perfect 90s
to be
evening.
14 years old. But no, I'm a huge fan. And I have to give... Listen, there's some honorable mentions I got that are probably better movies. But it's a little bit of a nostalgia pick for me.
And that's fine.
I got
to
to honor the Van Damme because he ain't going to make the list anywhere else. Let's be honest.
He's really not.
And he deserves to be on some list because he's one of the greatest action stars of all time.
You know, you're right. And you're right. I like Jean-Claude Van Damme, but I wouldn't have put that as my top 10.
Okay. You're number 10 then.
Again, remember, these are probably unpopular picks for a top 10. But these are Chris and I's picks. My number 10.
Speak for yourself.
Total Recall.
Total Recall.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Why is that unpopular?
I just feel like it's unpopular as number 10.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I feel like more people would pick it higher.
Higher. Okay.
I think people would pick that higher because it is a classic. people love
it's a Paul Verhoeven movie. Same. He did a little movie called RoboCop as well.
Yeah, he did. And that was on my top 10 for
80s. Yeah.
80s action movies. The reason I love...
It's also a Philip K. Dick story. Did you know that?
He's great.
Science fiction author extraordinaire.
Yeah, big time. Arnold Schwarzenegger was in his prime.
That's right.
Prime.
1990.
He was doing the best work he's ever done. And Total Recall, they made a fake head of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And boobs. 3 boobs.
Yeah, there's a 3 boob character, but his whole head, his eyes pop out, like his tongue pops out. If you go back and watch it, it's terrible.
Yeah, oh yeah, but it was one of the most expensive movies ever made. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No.
At the time.
At the time, I could understand that, but I did not know that that was a fact. But I don't know. It's like he's dreaming about Mars, and then he ends up going to Mars, and they need him to go to Mars, and it's a really fun movie, and I love it.
And his name is Douglas Quaid.
Yeah,
and I love the Quaid family.
Anybody in the Quaid family,
Dennis Quaid is the best.
What's another Quaid?
Randy Quaid?
Randy Quaid. Of course. Shitter's Full.
He might make an appearance on Jerry's List later. All right. Yes, I'm also a big fan of Total Recall. That brings me to my number 9. Mm-hmm. A little movie called Total Recall.
What?
Yes.
It's your number 9?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, it is my number 9, and it was my number 8, but I decided to move it to number 9 because this makes more sense because it's interchangeable. How can you not love this movie? And you love it as a kid in the 90s for sure.
Yes.
It was amazing. I don't know what it would be like to see it as an adult in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's a epic fantasy sci-fi romp. It's probably one of my first experiences really with the sci-fi genre. If I really think about it, in 1990, like what did I have before that? I surely hadn't seen Aliens before that.
In 1990, I was 3.
E.T., but I wasn't. I was 6.
No, you were like 14.
So it was probably one of my... I didn't see it when I was 6, obviously. I probably saw it when I was 10, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's an amazing movie. We've already talked a bunch about it.
My number 9.
It's great. My number 9, actually.
That was your number 9, but I'm going to
Your
talk
number
about
9 is next.
my number 9 right now.
But that was my number 9.
Yeah, well,
but this
was
is
my
yours.
number 10.
This is your number 9.
But my number 10 was your number 9,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter. What was my number 9?
Oh, my God.
Where's it at? Oh, man. So I have Face Off as my number 9.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
No, it isn't. It is such a good movie. It's a John Woo movie.
Yeah,
everybody loves John Woo.
I don't know if everybody loves John
Every
Woo.
single person in the United States loves John Woo, and it has Nicolas Cage and John Travolta.
That is true. It does have both
Those
of those
two people in the 90s, besides Arnold Schwarzenegger, were on fire.
You know,
They had so many movies that were good.
I love Nick Cage, obviously.
Love him.
Not a huge fan of Travolta.
He was great in this movie.
Yeah, he's all right.
He was absolutely great. Mm-hmm. They traded faces, Chris.
They did trade faces. It's true.
Their faces were torn off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cut off, if you will, and put on each other. And then they had to act as each other. Could you do that? Could you act as me?
No.
No, I don't think you could.
I don't think I could.
You don't have the chops to act as me. But Nicolas Cage has the chops to act as John Travolta, and John Travolta is okay enough to act as Nicolas Cage. And I think it's a great movie. It's like a crime, thriller, action flick, right?
Yeah.
And it's good. It's my number 9.
All right. We'll move on from that.
No,
travesty.
watch it. You should watch it.
My number 8, Jerry, is a little movie starring President James Marshall.
Ooh.
Played by Harrison Ford, in a little movie that I saw called Air Force One.
That's a good movie.
Love that movie. Absolutely. You could still watch that movie today and you wouldn't know it was made in 1996 or whenever it was made. Also another movie that I saw in theaters when I was about I don't know, 12 years old, 12 or 13 years old. My parents, I remember going out to the movies that night with one of my friends. My parents specifically telling me, you cannot see an R-rated movie. Going and sneaking into the R-rated movie.
You would.
And then coming home, and they had friends over, and walking through the kitchen, and my parents saying, what movie did you see? And me saying Air Force One, and then just continuing to walk to my room.
You remember all of that?
I remember it vividly.
Really?
Yeah, because we didn't sneak in. That's a lie. We didn't sneak in. The persons that I went to the movie with, we went with their parents.
Their parents. Okay.
So I'm like...
So that's okay.
Well, yeah.
It was allowed in the movie theater, just not with your parents.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, despite that fact, I still think it's a great movie. I loved it at the time because as a, 13 or 14-year-old in an R-rated movie, probably the first R-rated movie I ever saw in theaters, for sure. But aside from that, it's a very fun, action-packed, amazing movie. Harrison Ford is the man, obviously. Ugh. And I've been a huge fan of his as a kid ever since, obviously, Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So it was fun to see that. It was fun to see him. And until recently in my life, I thought that he was Jack Ryan in that movie. I thought...
Not in Air Force One.
I thought it was a Jack Ryan movie. It was just President Jack Ryan. I didn't really think about it.
No, that's Patriot Games.
Well, he was Jack Ryan in a bunch of movies.
Yeah.
Might make my list somewhere else.
Maybe.
But anyway, that's my number 8.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll go with that. My number 8, Harrison Ford also, like, after going through a bunch of these movies, and like I said, I had like 22 movies on my list.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford had a ton of movies in the 90s.
Yeah.
That I just didn't realize.
That one with Anne Heche.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yep. What's that?
Like 6 Days, 7 Nights when they get crashed on an airplane on a deserted island.
Okay. Yes, that is one of them. It's not one that I thought of. Anyway, my number 8, right? I'm on 8. Yeah. Is one that we talked about on the last episode.
Oh, yeah? How's that possible?
Well, because they were talking about making a sequel to this movie, a number 2. A Demolition Man.
Oh, Demolition Man.
Number 2. That's my number 8.
Little Wesley Snipes action.
Wesley Snipes.
Little Sylvester Stallone.
Sly Stallone.
It's a great movie.
It has...
Can't argue with this pick.
I'm telling you. You're bringing back people out of a frozen slumber.
Yeah, cryogenic sleep.
And you're bringing them back to fight a terrible villain in a time frame of where there's like peace, like perfect peace. And there's this one guy that's doing bad things. And Sly Stallone has to come in and make it all right.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible movie.
It's way ahead of its time, first off.
It really was. It was really, really good. It's not, like, if you look at the ratings for it, it's really not rated that well, but...
It's underrated.
I think it is.
There's no doubt
I think it's an incredibly underrated movie, and that's why I was so excited about a Demolition Man 2.
It's a fun movie, too. That's another great thing about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it, like, other than watch Demolition Man if you've never seen it before, because they probably are going to make a second one, and they should. Sweet. And this is like Sly Stallone, like, in the... like, I don't know, like the upper echelon of his prime, right? Like, he's done a lot of things after this. He's directed a lot of things. He's written a lot of things. But in his acting career, I think he's in his prime.
Yeah.
93?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. My number 7, guys, is actually a sequel. Can you imagine a sequel being in a top 10?
Yeah, that's weird.
It's a little movie called Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? I've been out riding fences for so long now. Oh, you're a wild one.
Yeah, we're done.
All right. It has nothing to do with that song.
Not a huge Eagles fan, if you can believe it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long fucking day.
Okay.
And I don't want to listen to the fucking Eagles, man.
No, I don't either.
Listen, Desperado, aside from the Eagles, amazing movie. Robert Rodriguez, one of my favorite directors of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Does a bunch of stuff with like Sin City. It's great.
Yeah, he does a lot with Sin City, turns out.
No, I'm a huge Robert Rodriguez fan. And did he do the one with what's that little shorter movie he did? Death Wish? Was it Death Ride? Death Wish with Kurt Russell?
Yeah, Death Wish.
It was part of the Grindhouse movie set.
Death Wish. Yep.
Great movie. Anyway, Robert Rodriguez, sequel to El Mariachi, which wasn't nearly as well known as Desperado, was the big one. And then they did Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which is amazing too as well. But listen, it doesn't get better than this. It doesn't get better than this movie, except for the other 6 I have above it.
Right.
No, I mean, Antonio Banderas at one of his finest. Super fun action. One of those first movies like of the Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino age that just gets insanely violent. Amazing.
Yeah. It is.
There you go.
I like it.
Desperado.
Oh, man. My number 7. I never know what you're going to think about my picks. And honestly, I don't care about what you think of my picks, but other people might think of them as laughable. I pick a lot of things based off of nostalgia.
Okay.
I always tell you that, and I say it with every single pick. Like, this is a nostalgia pick. This movie came out in 97. I was 10 years old. Okay. And I watched this movie so much. I watched it so many times. And I loved it every single time. And it also starred Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
Take a guess.
Well, you already did Face Off.
You don't treat women like that.
Con Air?
Fucking Con Air.
Oh, no.
I love it.
Steve Buscemi's in that, too, right?
I know.
He's really good.
And
it's not a bad movie, actually.
That's what I was going to get at is Steve Buscemi comes in. He's like the really bad guy. And because he gets off the plane, goes over, and he's like hiding out in these people's like backyard. And he starts like holding this little girl by her pool.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. You don't know what he's going to do. Like, you've already known that he's a really bad guy. And then all of a sudden they start singing, "You've got the whole world in his hands." And he's holding this child. It's like disturbing at the time.
Yeah.
And you're like, is he going to murder this child? Because you assume he would do that because of how bad they've already like propped him up to be. And then this other bad guy, Nicolas Cage or Cameron Poe, you think he's the bad guy, but he ends up saving the plane, saving all these people. He's a good guy because he was in the army before this.
Just like Joe Exotic.
He was like, you know, I mean, Nicolas Cage can be a good Joe Exotic, but
because of this role. That's why he can be Joe Exotic.
I think you're right. I don't know. I loved it. I watched it all the time. I think it's really great. It's a fun movie.
It actually is a pretty good movie. I'm not going to disagree with you.
Oh, who's this other guy?
Michael Clark Duncan? Wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he's in it too. But there's the other guy that was the cop, and I can't remember who it was. Let me see. Everybody will know him when I find out who it is. Oh shoot!
It's a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, by the way.
But I don't know. This is when Nicolas Cage was like on fire.
John Cusack?
Yes.
John Malkovich?
John Cusack's in it. John Malkovich is in it.
Ving Rhames. Not Michael Clark Duncan. It was Ving Rhames. Sorry.
Right.
Danny Trejo. Yeah, I forgot. Dave Chappelle's in it.
Dave Chappelle's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tons of people are in this movie, and it is so good.
It grossed over $224 million on a production budget of $75 million.
Yeah. Well, tells you how good
it's not a bad movie. Definitely at all. I
loved it. It's on my top 10. It will always be in my top 10 for 90s movies because it is so good.
Perfect. Well, what number was that for you? I'm sorry.
7.
So my number 6 series.
Yes.
Oh, this is one where I might get a depart. And okay, I want to throw something out there. real quick, because when I was talking about Desperado, it jumped in my mind like Quentin Tarantino, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of thought about it. I'm like, well, I based my list off of IMDb, just how we did it for the 80s movies. I based the 90s movie list off the top 100 IMDb movies. And then
so you didn't base it off of like what you like?
No. I looked at the top 100 and I picked my top 10 out of that on my own.
Oh yeah, good idea.
But I looked at it and I didn't put any Quentin Tarantino movies on my top 10 because I don't really consider them action movies.
Right, and there is a specific I don't know. There's like a specific thing that we considered action movies, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a...
So I don't know why, but like Quentin Tarantino movies to me don't feel like action movies. So I didn't
they're
throw them
not.
on my list. Like Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time. Jackie Brown is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, but they're not action.
Yeah.
No.
So I didn't throw them on, but I thought that was odd when I started to think about it because I threw a Robert Rodriguez movie on, which is very similar to Quentin Tarantino movie. But anyway.
To a point.
Yeah. I just want to throw that out there. We already did a Quentin Tarantino list at one time in this podcast, but we could always...
It wasn't an official
We
list.
can do an official one. Anyway, my number 6 is a movie that a lot of people might not even remember, honestly. It came out in 1999. It had George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, and Ice Cube in it.
Three Kings.
Yep. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm not even shitting about that.
Really?
It's a Spike Jonze movie, and it is during the Iraq War, and they're like basically on a heist to steal a bunch of gold.
I fought in that war.
Yeah, but it was the first one.
Oh, okay.
Desert Storm.
Oh, yeah. That was before me.
They were on a heist to steal gold from one of Saddam Hussein's bunkers.
Yeah.
Like for most of my young life up until probably I was in college, this was one of my favorite movies of all time. And probably even still is. It still is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes.
So I had to throw it on. It's not really, I don't know if it's really an action movie, although I think it is.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely unbelievable movie that I think a lot of people probably haven't seen.
I have.
Yeah, so I think you should go out of your way to check out
It's
Three
good.
Kings.
George
It's my number
Clooney
6.
and Mark Wahlberg
and Ice Cube.
And Ice Cube. All three of them work very well together in this movie. They are...
It's kind of I think it was like an independent movie, but grossed $107 million on a $48 million budget. Spike Jonze, obviously, is a huge director. Yeah. He did like a lot of movies. What's one that's jumping in my head that Spike Jonze did?
Spike Jonze.
I know he did Where the Wild Things Are, but I think he did, he did Being John Malkovich. He did Adaptation, which is one of my favorite movies of all time with Nicolas Cage. Have you ever seen Adaptation?
I have.
Oh, I love that movie. And
I've seen basically everything Nicolas Cage has
He won an
done.
Academy Award for that movie. Anyway, he did Her, too, with Joaquin Phoenix.
He did.
Anyway, so Three Kings, great movie. George Clooney, loved it. That's my number 6.
My number 6 is not anywhere close to yours, but it's another nostalgia pick. Because that's what I do. I pick movies that I remember from the 90s that I watched all the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they're things that I love. Like, these are movies that I love. And this involves Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Do you know what movie that would be?
Point Break.
Speed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I know. I get it.
No, it's fine.
It's probably
I
not.
actually wrote it down here. It just you'll
It's
have to see where
probably
it
not
comes.
most people's top 10 for action movies. Like, it's not necessarily like the
It actually
best.
just made me think about is the fact that Point Break isn't on my list.
Yeah, well, right.
What a great movie, though.
So I get it's not like something you would acclaim as the best acting in the world. No, sure you wouldn't. But Keanu Reeves is phenomenal because it's early in his career and he's doing as much as he possibly can to be as good as he can.
That's a Sandra Bullock movie.
Sandra Bullock is
Sandy?
the best.
Yes.
Sandy
yeah.
Bullock is the one driving the bus, folks.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, they have to keep it above 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, or they'll all blow up. Spoilers. That's nerve-wracking.
Yeah. It is. There's
And
tension
then
there.
Keanu Reeves is like busting open hatches in the bottom of the bus, hanging underneath. He's fighting that one guy. I think Jeff Daniels is the bad guy.
I don't remember.
I think he is. No, Dennis Hopper. Freaking Dennis Hopper is a bad guy.
You mean Dennis Hopper from Waterworld?
All the time. Oh, don't even get me started on Waterworld, because Waterworld is one of my favorites. Was that a 90s movie?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's not on my list.
No.
And I should have put it on my list.
Yeah. The Postman's not on my list either.
So we're going to have to redo this.
No, keep going. It's fine.
So anyway, Dennis Hopper is like the ultimate bad guy. Every time you see him, even if he's acting as a good guy, you assume he's the bad guy. He looks like a bad guy. He is a bad guy in this movie, and Keanu Reeves defeats him because he's the best. And Sandy Bullock, Annie, her name is in the movie, knows how to drive a freaking bus, man.
That's right.
I love Speed. Watch Speed right now.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go with my number 5, which is another one that...
top 5.
Yeah, top 5 here, folks. Here's a film that a lot of people might not even remember or think about, but it is a 1998 action thriller directed by the younger brother of Sir Ridley Scott, Mr. Tony Scott, famous director, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer because it's the 90s.
Yeah, right.
Starring a fledgling star called Will Smith.
Oh.
And also a veteran actor called Gene Hackman.
Is this Enemy of the State?
You're correct, sir. It is Enemy of the State. John Voight, Lisa Bonet.
Oh, John Voight.
Great movie. I have loved this movie ever since I was a kid. It's been always in like my top 10 or 20 movies of all time.
Yeah.
I don't know why I gravitated towards this movie that everybody else in the world forgot, but
no, I didn't forget it.
I absolutely love this movie. I think it was, first of all, it was one of the first. Will Smith is fantastic in it. As
honestly,
he is in
Will Smith
all of his
is
movies.
A phenomenal actor.
He really is great in all movies. And this, I think, was probably post Independence Day, which was probably his big break.
It was. Yeah.
But
it was.
You know, this is Gene Hackman is amazing in this movie as well.
Freaking Gene
so
Hackman.
good. I just absolutely love this movie, and I see it on TV now, and I stop and watch the entire thing.
Yeah.
If I see it like on TBS.
Yeah, that's where you're gonna see it.
But
USA.
Enemy of the State, absolutely love it. That's my number 5.
My number 5 is again, like all of my picks are things that I have enjoyed in my childhood and remember watching from the 90s. Like the 90s were something that I grew up in, right? So like those are the movies that I remember are from the 90s. So they may be different than like critically acclaimed movies. This movie I picked as number 5 because it was like the modern day James Bond.
Okay.
To me. And I watched Mission Impossible.
Oh, well, that's not James Bond.
It is. It's like the modern days, like the modern day.
You know how there was James Bond movies all through the 90s.
I understand.
Do you know
that.
a little guy named what's his name? Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan.
No, I get it.
A little movie called GoldenEye.
I understand. We'll get to that.
The
maybe
world is
later.
not enough.
I'm saying like it's a modern day United States version of James Bond. Like it was a newer take on a character similar to that.
Plus, I mean, Tom
like a
Cruise.
CIA agent.
That guy's dreamy.
Like a thriller that had to do with crime and, a secret agent type person. It was a new take on that. It was different than James Bond.
No, it's James Bond.
No, that's James Bond.
What is this? What is the dun? No, that's James Bond. Too.
No. I think you're on it.
No, that's James Bond. What's the song for Mission Impossible? Come on.
You were on it. Like, it's... No, that's James Bond. Quit doing the same song.
Quit doing the bum.
Yeah. It's, oh, shoot.
I don't know. Ethan Hunt
hanging from
Ving
wires.
Rhames.
Hanging from wires from a ceiling.
Simon Pegg.
So he doesn't trip the lasers.
Yeah.
While he's trying to grab the thing. whatever it was in the room. And it's awesome. There's been so many Mission Impossible movies. I get it. But the first one came out in 96. It set a standard for action, thriller, like, cop movies, like secret agent movies.
Absolutely.
That I feel like it needed to be recognized. And yeah, Tom Cruise, right in the middle of his career, perfect. I think he was perfect as the character. And the newest one that came out, like Ghost Protocol, I think was the newest one.
It's really good. They're all good.
That dude's like 55, almost 60 years old, and he's doing things that nobody's ever even thought of in movies. He broke his ankle while trying to jump across buildings, like shattered his ankle. And that's the take they used in the movie. And now he's talking about making a movie in space. I love Tom Cruise, and I will marry him. Mission Impossible, number 5.
All right. Number 4 for me. This is going to be right up your alley, Jerry, because this is a little movie starring Nicolas Cage.
I hope it's the same one that I have.
And starring one of my favorite actors of all time.
Sean Connery.
Maybe. There's a little line called, "Your best. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen."
The fucking Rock. The
Rock. My number 4. I love this movie. Couldn't get enough of this movie. From 1996. I mean, come on, dude.
I know.
Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery breaking into Alcatraz.
Getting in there trying to stop the whole like nuclear holocaust, basically, or they're shooting off that like
Ed Harris was in
carcinogen.
Ed Harris is
whatever
amazing. Sympathetic villains. Come on, this movie has everything.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Hot shingles, you say?
No, I actually absolutely love this movie. FBI director James Womack.
Well, we're gonna keep talking about it because The Rock is my number 4 movie as well.
Oh my god, that's joking, insane.
You. The Rock, 1996, absolutely my number 4 movie. I love this. Is like the second to last movie that Sean Connery ever made. The last one he ever made was something Gentlemen.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is a very good movie.
You want to know what's amazing? The Rock was directed by Michael Bay. Did you know that? Of Transformers fame?
I didn't know
that. And also, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Who would have thought?
No, I love this movie. Come on.
Yeah, the Pentagon and the FBI develop a plan to retake the island with a U.S. Navy SEALs team.
It grossed over $335 million, Jerry.
Holy crap. $335.1 million on a budget of $75 million.
Yeah.
That's incredible. June 7th, 1996. This is a great movie.
Ed Harris only demanded $100 million in ransom for not shooting the gas into San Francisco.
Yes.
But the movie made $300 million. They could have just turned over some of the profits from the movie
to stop the
and
whole
it would have been
plot.
all over.
Duh.
Yeah.
Why didn't they do that?
Seriously, guys.
But Nicolas Cage acts his ass off in this movie.
Sean Connery,
the whole
that's my favorite,
I know, but
favorite
I mean,
part of it.
But Nicolas Cage like diving across that, it's like a watchtower or a bell tower where they have the missiles with all those little green balls of gas.
Yeah.
And he's diving across there to try to grab these glass balls of gas, and he does. He actually gets them. Spoilers. It's such a good movie. I've watched this like 47 times probably.
Yeah.
No joke. It's very good. It's also my number 4. Now you can do your number 3.
My number 3 is a little movie that we've already talked about, Jerry.
Really?
You didn't put it low enough because it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
High enough, you mean?
Yes, high enough. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's one of the greatest 90s action movies of all time.
Total Recall.
No, I already said Total Recall.
I said it.
So did I.
Did you?
Yeah, it was my number 9.
Oh, it was right after.
This movie is Mission Impossible.
Oh, I just was talking about it. It's my number 5.
Yeah, it is my number 3. I love this movie. Always love this movie. Brian De Palma directed. Tom Cruise. It's got It's got Simon Pegg in it.
Yeah.
It's got Ving Rhames in it.
Yeah. Simon Pegg's in all of them, and he's phenomenal.
He's great. It's just so interesting and fun and action, but also suspense and drama and mystery.
And don't you think it's set up a whole new level of
a new paradigm
movie?
For sure. Mission Impossible 3. Oh, that's a good movie. That's J.J. Abrams, one of his first movies, right?
And Metallica did the single for that, I Disappear.
Yeah, and also it had what's the dude's name and the bad guy? It's amazing
care.
in it.
I don't care. We're talking about Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible 1 set the whole thing out. Ethan Hunt, great. Pulls the mask off, fantastic. Hangs from the ceiling, amazing.
And to be honest, I love
fan.
every single one of these movies. I watch them every time they come out.
Correct.
They're very good. They're entertaining. It's like the epitome of action movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like if Jack Reacher was good.
Exactly. 100%. You're right. I like the Jack Reacher movies, but these are way better.
Yeah, for sure. That's my number 3. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is going to coincide with an 80s movie I picked. And I think it was my number 1. But this happens to be the second installment of
interesting.
that. And it's Predator 2.
Predator 2 is your number
fucking A,
3
buddy.
movie?
I love Predator. It's always going to be in my top.
Travesty of mankind right here.
Danny Glover acts his ass off. Gary Busey is in it.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Busey is a national treasure because he's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a predator involved in L.A. I think it's L.A. I don't remember.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
Yes, that's Danny Glover in this movie. I love it. It's Predator killing people in a city, and Danny Glover is the old cop that doesn't want to do it. He's all worn out. He's really sweaty all the time, and he solves the whole deal. He understands it's an alien race. He figures out that they've landed in the city, and it's awesome. I love Predator 1, and I love Predator 2.
All right.
And it's my number 3, and I don't care what you think.
Let's move on from that terrifying pick of a... Come on. This is 90s we're talking about. There's way better shit to pick than that.
I mean, I agree with you that there are better movies that have been made in the 90s. But we're talking about our own top 10s, and my top 10 has Predator 2 as number 3.
All right. Number 2 for me is a little movie starring Keanu Reeves. And it's called The Matrix.
Oh, no kidding.
Do they make clothes in The Matrix? Do they sell clothes in The Matrix, Jerry?
Yeah, they do. You got them.
Yeah. This was a game changer for me,
time.
For the world, for cinema, for culture, for everything.
Yeah.
The Wachowskis brought this.
The Wachowski sisters
brought this vision, and there's a new one coming.
Matrix 4
with Keanu. And guess what? I love the sequels too. I loved all of them.
I really have.
I liked all of them. Yep. I like the Animatrix a lot. The animated Matrix shorts that they did. I dove hard into the Matrix universe. I'm excited to see more of it, although I feel like I've been so distant from it now that it's going to take some getting back into. But it still holds up, guys. It still holds up as a movie. It really, really holds up.
I don't think it'll take much to get back into, to be honest with you. Once you get in that world again and you see...
people getting plugged in.
Yeah, just see a similar movie. I think you'll fit right into it right away, as long as they're in the same tone.
I just think it was. I
mean, they went off the rails a little bit. It went a little bit stranger than it should have.
Like the celebration scene in the city.
Right.
What's the city called?
They have a big party.
Yeah, it's weird.
Zion,
yeah. Anyway, I think this movie right here marked a complete change in cinema.
I completely agree. They filmed it differently. They did whole scenes. By the way, The Matrix is also my number 2.
Oh, okay.
We have the identical number 2s and number 4s. Weird.
Yeah.
It's written on paper though. Like this is not fake. This
No,
is real.
It's real.
The Matrix is something that has changed all of cinema from the time it was made, and it really honestly has. And there's nobody that could argue that. Like
the only thing before that changed the game, like everything else, was Star Wars.
But to the point that this did, I don't even think Star Wars did. I don't think Star Wars changed.
Oh yes, it did.
Filming the way the Matrix did from like that point on. I don't think it did.
Well, I think Star Wars changed everything in cinema. I think Matrix did as well. It just didn't hold on to that lightning in a bottle as well. And then I think like Avatar was another one that jumped out and changed things.
But I think there's a difference in saying like a movie changed cinema and then a movie changed cinematography, like how you actually film movies.
Well, Star Wars definitely changed both of those things.
But so did The Matrix. The Matrix
more did with special effects and cinematography.
Yeah.
Changed that aspect, less so the story aspect of how stories are.
It didn't change anything with story, but I was saying like the way they filmed that movie had never been done before, ever. Like nobody filmed that way. And I remember it being such a big deal about that. Like it was basically like bullet time animation where it was 360.
CGI. It was like one of the first.
But they had 360 cameras that moved around, and it was a big deal.
It had mocap. It was a big deal. Yeah.
It was awesome, and I want to be the one.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
We're on to your number one.
My number one. Oh my God.
Already.
It's definitely the same as your number one. I can tell you that.
You think so?
Yeah, for sure. It's a little movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger called T2.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day is also my number one.
One of the best movies ever made. And it is definitely the best action movie of the 1990s.
I completely agree.
And if you don't believe that,
if you ain't drinking the juice,
you need to go back and watch it and realize that funny little Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that you watched as a kid
is way better than you ever remember.
Way better than you remember, way deeper than you remember, and way more amazing and world building than you could ever imagine.
And it's way better than the first one. Like,
yes,
so different.
And there's been a lot of good ones since.
Yeah.
I actually really particularly liked Terminator Genesis, the one with Christian Bale. Was that Genesis?
No, that was that wasn't Genesis.
The one that everybody hated.
No, I agree with you. I liked it a lot too. I always liked that movie. But for T2 Judgment Day, like I watched that movie again, like so many times in the 90s as a kid, which I think about now is weird.
Salvation, sorry.
Like I think that's weird. Like that movie was so deep, so heavy, so
adult oriented,
yeah. And I was watching it as a kid all the time I was watching that, and I loved it. And like if I were to try to play that for my kids right now, they wouldn't even understand it. But I don't know, it was like, I guess it was just a different time, and I love that movie. Like I was attached to the Terminator, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. I was attached to him, and I thought he was like what would it be? An anti-hero, I guess?
Yeah,
Is
for
he
sure.
an anti-hero? And then, I mean, there's just so many things that you follow him along the movie, him and John Connor, and then by the end of it, with the thumbs up going through the magma, the molten steel.
Yeah.
It's just like very like involved, and I was like
Called
emotionally
back from,
involved.
The Mandalorian. Kind of.
When?
At the end, when
Did he do a thumbs up?
the droid is in the...
Yes.
I don't know if he does a thumbs up, but
he
does
doesn't do a
something.
thumbs up, but he's in the lava like river.
Yeah.
And he dies.
Well,
Yes.
whatever. Irregardless. It set up a world that
Come with me if you want to live.
is great and deep, and James Cameron, man.
I need your shoes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Yeah.
Or clothes. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. And he shoves a cigar in his chest, and it doesn't even bother him.
Another complete groundbreaker in as far as special effects are done.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got the Liquid Metal Man, the T-2000.
Yeah, you got to understand the special effects in this movie. What year did this come out?
They used Mercury.
1994, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
1991, this movie came out.
Holy smokes.
So the effect of the liquid metal.
They used mercury on a pool table and blew it around with a hairdryer.
Yeah, this is one of the first real special effects. They also did the one with like the hollow man, like the water person. It was one of the first special effects. Okay, so the movie that brought CGI and groundbreaking special effects like to the mainstream in a big way was Star Wars, The Phantom Menace.
Right.
Right. So before that,
but that was 2001.
No. Well.
Yeah, Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. Yeah, that was 2001.
I don't think it was 2001.
Or was it 99?
I think it was 99.
Okay, either way, 8 to 10 years later.
Listen, that's what I'm saying. This is the predecessor. This was like the 99 for Phantom Menace. That was where we blew up
8 years later.
Full-scale CGI into a movie.
Yeah.
They had full-scale characters, everything. This early CGI, T2 was on the innovation. This was at the very beginning. This was James Cameron.
Yeah.
At the very front end of this. And mind-blowing at the time.
Yeah, at the time, it was incredible.
You hadn't seen anything like it.
And again, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like in his prime, doing what he does. And honestly, Sarah Connor, what's that lady's name? The lady who acted
Linda Hamilton?
Hamilton, yes. Yeah. Linda Hamilton. She was great because she's coming from a point of view where she lived with a Terminator before, but he was the bad guy. And she's trying to overcome the fact that like he's not going to destroy everything she's ever known. And she has to work with something that she knew killed everybody, but has to work with him to save her son. And it's just like wild. I don't know. The whole movie's wild. It's really good. It's dark. Everything about it is good. If you've never seen Terminator 2, you are missing out on something that is incredible. And honestly, I don't feel like you need to see the first one.
No, you absolutely do not.
All you need to know is that the first one had Arnold Schwarzenegger as the bad guy. You have to think Arnold Schwarzenegger is the bad guy at the beginning of this movie, and then you are caught up.
So if you want to get a timeline of computer animation in film, all right.
I mean, did anybody ask for that?
No, I think it's a big deal.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Terminator 2 in 1991 was the first realistic human movements of a CGI character. First partially computer-generated main character. First movie to feature morphing effects, and the first use of personal computer to create major movie 3D effects. So it's the first.
Yeah, it really is.
The only thing really before that, in the same year, was Backdraft, and they had CGI Fire.
Yeah.
And then RoboCop 2, digital puppetry.
Freaking love RoboCop 2.
And Die Hard 2 had a manipulated matte painting.
So at this time, James Cameron was married to Linda Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. So after that, these are like Terminator 2 is the beginning, and then Jurassic Park is what sets it.
Yeah.
Blows it out of the water.
Yep.
And that was in 1993. So, yeah, pretty much Terminator 2. That's where it's at. Number one
is the best action movie of the 90s.
For sure, guys. That's where it's at.
So we have 5 more that we are going to do on a Patreon exclusive.
And guys, these 5 that I have left on my list are worth listening to.
I tell you what, there's really 5 good that are probably going to be argued. And you know what? Like most of these 5 should have been on my top 10.
Yeah.
I don't know
what to
do.
We'll do 10 honorable mentions each. How about that? Bonus.
Okay.
On Patreon.
I agree.
But it'll be out next week.
Hang on. Let me count. Make sure I got them. Because I thought I had 22. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Here's what we'll do. We'll do
10.
We'll do our top.
I got them.
We'll do 10 more honorable mentions, but we won't talk about ones that were on this list. Like Speed was on. It would have been on my Not top 5 honorable mentions. Would have been in there. We're not going to talk about it.
Okay, because it was on my top 10.
Because it was on your top 10. So if any of your honorable mentions were on my top 10, we won't talk about them.
Okay, and I also like Enemy of the State. I had it on my honorable mentions.
And I had Demolition Man on my honorable mentions as well.
Well, that was stupid.
So I'll have 8 honorable mentions, and you'll have 9.
No, I'll probably have 8.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. All right.